Okay, so we're talking about Minuet 1. Everybody's hiding over there. Okay, right, so please grab a seat. You can move your chair if you really feel self-conscious. Go sit over there if you want, on the doors. What is the main teaching point of Minuet 1, do we think? Or what are the main teaching points?
It's the first time you've got hooked bowing.
Very good. Yeah, not the first time we've had up, but the first time we've had hooked, like repeated up bows. Good.
It's the first piece in 3/4.
Excellent, yeah, it's the first minuet and the first piece in 3/4 and the first of 3 minuets in a row. So it's definitely a kind of different idiom and different sense of pulse and very different style.
It's the first one with a key change as well.
Yes. Well, it is, but what that means for the students is that it's got high twos and red finger pattern and blue finger pattern in the same piece, which has happened in etude.
Yeah.
So you're right, but I don't think they really compute that sort of modulation as something that makes a big difference. So we've got ABA structure, sandwich, as with so many of our book 1 pieces. It's got to have a dance feel. And like Beck said, it's in G major, but it has a key change in 1, 2 and 3. So your tick boxes would be bowing, boxes, 2s, memory, which is getting more tricky, isn't it? With the do 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 do, not do 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 in bar 15. And dynamics, whether you put the dynamics in as a thing to do from the beginning or whether you put them in as review, it's up to you. Your preview box is the 2 notes between 5 and 6, so the last note of bar 5 and the first note of bar 6, where they've got to keep their 3 on and place the 4. So you first of all teach just that, so just making sure the 3 is staying on and that their E is in tune, and then once they can do that very well, and swapping to the tune. So you may do that during etude, probably you'll just be trying to get through etude while you're doing etude. So that's probably not really a preview box, but the first box that you're going to teach. And some of them will need this part. Put in a box just so that they can practice not playing. There. And at the end of that line, so at the end of 16, you've got to make sure they've released their 2 from the string. And this is different from what you would normally teach, right? So you normally would leave a lower finger on, but you have to pick it up in bar 16 so that they can place it on a C natural in bar 17. So that will probably be a box at least from 15 to 17 for that picking up the 2. And I think it's helpful for you to teach them, what's wrong with this? And they go, oh, it's got a bit of disgusting slide in it. And you say, okay, well, the way that we can get around that is to make sure that you swap your fingers there. Can you wiggle your 2 in the air? And then you can place it next to 1 without having that slide. I think it's quite useful if you're teaching using the finger pattern colours, which I hope you will, to put the 2s in red and blue, because it makes it clear whether it's best friends with the 1 or the 3 all the way through.
Does that correlate with the finger patterns? Yeah.
So red is next to 3 and blue is next to 1. And then at the end of the page you've got this exercise number 3, put the 3 on and the 1 on. And that's a more advanced version of what you need to do in bar 16. So you want to make sure, if you're going to teach it, then this 3rd 3, you've got to pick up the 2, pick up the 2, pick up the 2. I have to say, for the reason that that is quite complicated, that sometimes it stays down and sometimes it stays up, I prefer teaching it pick up, so that you're just changing the 2. It makes it easier to just do 1 of each, because then you always pick the 2 up and leave the 1 and the 3 on. But I have to say, it's one of those exercises that lots of my students don't ever need. I mean, if they're doing it fine in the piece, you don't need to do extra.
Do you have to take that little bit out, going from the last quaver of bar 13 to the crotchet of 14? Like you have to do with...
Not normally. If you've done it over the other strings, they normally just do the same thing.
Okay.
But if they're not, then yes.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay. Any questions about Minuet 1? I mean, the kids tend to get through it fairly quickly. They tend to really enjoy it. It feels like a big step up, and yet it's also a relief after etude. So it's a sort of double win. And then we have another mountain piece in Minuet 2. So you definitely want to preview Minuet 2 while they're still on Minuet 1, the first 2 bars. So let's talk through the preview with violins, and then I will give you time to write afterwards, and then we'll play the whole thing. And then it'll be lunchtime.
Did you just say you previewed the first 2 bars of Minuet 2 when you're doing Minuet 1?
Yes, but I'm going to show you how to do it now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so let's just check we've got nice soft knees, beautiful bow holds, violin positions nice and high. Okay, so the preview that we're going to do is, so I'll talk you through it in the same way as you would talk your students through it. So we're going to play my turn, your turn. Ready, play. Then stay there, my turn. Ready, play. Good, and then we're going to do that again, my turn. Ready, play. Good, so the way that that all comes out together is ready, play. Good, and that's often quite difficult for them to get the double A. They want to play D-A-E or D-A-D-A-A-E-A-E. So the fact that it's like out of balance is kind of weird. Okay, so then we're going to add a big down bow at the end. And we're going to stop at the tip. Ready? And. Good, and now you're going to rise your hand up until you get to the D string and do my turn first. Ready? Play. Good, so my turn. So you want to make sure that your E, the end of the E as the rising of the hand. It's like a big tick in the air. It's not E, stop, raise your hand. We're gonna add it to the end of that. Okay? So let's just do the E string with the tick at the end. Ready? From the E. And land on the D. Yeah, good. Let's do it a few times. Beautiful. Make sure you don't hear any of the other strings. Okay, so Caroline, can you add it to the end of the E string so it's one movement which lands on the D at the end? Can you watch mine? Yeah? That's it, yeah. So let's do 3 more times together. Very nice. Good, can you go a bit higher, Kit? Beautiful. Okay, so, and then just stop on the D and we'll do the up bows together. Ready, play. Beautiful. Good, and now we'll put it all together. My turn. Ready, play. So you would teach all of that. I don't think for most kids you need to break it down more than that, but it does take probably 5 to 10 minutes to actually get them from not being able to play it at all to being able to play it how you just did, and then you send them away for a week to do it just open strings. If they're really struggling with the second part of it, just do the first bar and then the second bar, but it really, really helps for their muscle memory to do a week of that string crossing before they try and put the fingers with it, because it's otherwise very kind of confusing and messy and they don't tend to do it very well. So you're doing that while you're doing Minuet 1, and then you are probably getting a credit for Minuet 1 either... No,
it's fine.
Thank you. Either while you get the, sorry, what was I saying? Either you finish Minuet 1 while you're still doing that as a box, or they may not have finished Minuet 1 yet, and that's absolutely fine, and then you teach. And with this, some kids will need you to like go through every note. I wouldn't require you to do that unless they really need it. They have played, in theory, a G major arpeggio from the page 36. So you can remind them, okay, you know how you play this? Review that with them. And then, okay, well, if we start here, do you know what those notes are supposed to be? Yes, you do. Okay, so then we'll just add these things. So it's like got a little sort of extra flourish at the end, but it's essentially the arpeggio. And then the GGG. Okay? Good, let's play Minuet 2. Caroline, if you need the music, why don't you get a stand? It's not going to help your back to be leaning over like that. Someone help. Yes. So you definitely want, once you've done the preview, for the first 2 bars to become a regular practice box 10 times. This is the first piece with slurs in. I would say for most students this is a mounting piece, and it has high 3s for the first time. So the tick boxes, I'm going to give you a huge list, but I just want to remind you that if you've got a student who always plays with good tone, then you don't always need to write tone unless you feel that they're going to somehow sort of wither if you don't make a big fuss about how brilliant their tone is every time by ticking it as soon as they can play it, really. The same with intonation. You know, the heavy elbow, if you've got a student who's got beautiful string crossing, you don't need to write heavy elbow. Anyway, so here's the list. Heavy elbow, string crossing, memory, intonation and tone are always in there, and boxes are always in there. Boxes you do always need, even if you've got a really good student, because they're always going to have to work through the boxes before they can get that box ticked. Yeah, so you may find that you get the student getting their box ticked before they can play the whole piece because they've learnt the boxes in advance. You may also find that you've got a student who's got memory ticked before their boxes are good enough to get a box tick. So it's sort of like a way of just making sure that they know where they are in the map of progression towards getting a credit. Dynamics and bowing. And dynamics is something I always put in review, but it's up to you. So it introduces for the first time, sorry, am I going too fast? It's the first piece with triplets, the first piece with slurs, and the first piece with high 3s. The triplet slurs, it's very useful to teach them down, 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 up, up, down, and then slur, up, up, down. I mean, it's a bit mad, really, that the first piece with the slur is also a triplet. Not only in the same piece, but actually the same instance. But they're fine as long as you know how to break it down enough. It is written out, the preview for that is written out on page 40. And the bar 23 to 24 is also a big stretch, literally, with the high 3. So if you have a kid who's going a bit slow on Minuet 1 or learn the preview of Minuet 2 really quickly, I would recommend you do 23 and 24 as preview, but I wouldn't recommend overloading them with the first bar and the second bar as well as that box. So you can sort of, you know, work out what the balance between front loading and just presenting them with it when they get there is. I think doing a 4 on 29 is too difficult for them. They haven't done a D4 out of nowhere before. The slurs are quite difficult for them, not because they're difficult to do, but because they've never done down. They've always done down, up, up. So you will normally see your students come playing this piece and they'll go down, up, up, down, up, up, which makes perfect musical sense and is exactly what they have been doing for the last few weeks at least. So you need to take that out and teach it quite slowly. So that is also a box. And there is also a preview explanation on page 40. So you've got those 4 boxes, first 2 bars, bar 15 and 16, bar 23 and 24, and then 29 and 30.
What are they doing for the practice box bar 23 to 24?
Do you mean how would you break it down for them? So you would need probably to teach it like this. Okay, so we've got this. If they can't do that, but because you've done that on there, most of them will be able to do that. So do you want to just be my student and I'll just talk you through the steps I would use, and then we'll have lunch. Okay, so we're assuming you might be able to play the first half, but you haven't had even a go at this. Do you want to just, if you don't mind, come in shot? Okay, so my turn, your turn. Let's have a go at this one. So it's like this one, but it's even easier because you start with the first finger down. So 1 and 2 are best friends, so let's just play my turn, your turn. Lovely, and if they can't do that, then you would just stop the bows and do them separately. Yeah, good. Now we're going to add a note. So can you add a 1 on the end? Excellent, and some of them will stick their 1 down too much there and not be able to get it up. So you may have to teach, release the 1, put it on the A string, but lots of them will also just work out completely unconsciously that that's what they need to do. Okay, so we're going to just do that 5 times, then we do it 5 times, we're not going to do that right now. Okay, then we're going to separate the next part of what's happening. So when we get to here, we're going to find a D sharp, which is a high 3, so you've got to stretch it so it's best friends with 4, and if you look at my lovely finger pattern chart that I don't have in this room, you can see it's yellow with a hot pink 3, and the hot pink 3 is hot pink because it's so tricky to get it to be best friends with the 4. That is the only one out of all of those patterns that have got a special colour for that one finger pattern, so we've got to be really careful with it. Stretch that 3, and they've normally got a 3 stripe and maybe a 4 tape, and you can tell them to put it in between the 2, yeah? Your turn. Good, and then you're going to add your 4 and they're going to cuddle on the string. Great, so then however many times they need to do that until they're comfortable. And then let's put it together. Stretch that 3, and it's an up bow, and I would probably help them. So you play and I'll help you with the bow. So I'm just going to help you to remind you to go up on the high 3, just stretch that 3 a bit more, and then I'll just take them back. Good, now remember to cuddle your 4. Great. And then once they can do that, so they may do a week of just practicing that, but I do think it's useful for them to get the next bit because of the open E. So then once they can do that, might be the same lesson, might be the next week. You add on the rest of that bar and then that's the whole box. Okay, very good, well done.
What was the first box? Because I've got 23.
So the first 2 bars are the preview box with open strings, and then a regular box with fingers. And then 15 and 16, which you would teach down, 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 up, up, and then smooth. And they might do 5 times of each of those for a week. Or if their triplet slower is good, you might just go straight to the version that's there. And then the last box is 29 and 30.
Yeah.
And again, you'll need to teach that hooked bows and then slurred. And again, we're in ABA structure, but it's more complicated than Minuet one, isn't it? Good. During this piece, you are going to start to preview the 8 famous notes in Gossip Gabot. So if you just write at the bottom, preview Gossip Gabot 8 famous notes, and we'll talk about that when we get to Gossip, or maybe not, we'll talk about that next time. Good.